Let me be clear here and say that this is not the original video. I'll tell you why in a second. But the truth is, not every buff shows up in patch notes because some cards are just going to simply get buffed exclusively by the meta that shapes around them. So there's new cards, there's new engines, there's new releases, there's new habits that end up happening at the beginning of every season. That is exactly why I'm going to tell you 5 cards that secretly got buffed because of the new season, Visions of the Future in Marvel Snap. If you don't want to miss any of this type of content, I mean, I'm gonna always tell you, go down and like and subscribe because you understand the rhythm and the routine. But this is not the original video because I may or may not have sent it to the editor and may or may not have had my microphone off the entire time. Anyway, so for those who do not know, look, Viv Vision and Sparky immediately are going to be shaking up the meta. We're seeing new players experiment with the move archetype for the very first time. And they're like, wait a minute, oh, this could be really good. Wait a minute, Human Torch is not absolutely garbage. And there are other cards that release because of that. We see the importance of Omega Sentinel, and then there's that Andy guy. But there are some things that are going to change how we look at combating the meta, at least for the month of September. So it's not just those 2 cards, but I do want to talk about at least 5, probably a 6th. I'm going to first start off here with Scream. So Scream gets a huge buff this season, not because of Scream decks though, but because it punishes move. I want you to think about Scream a little bit differently because as of right now, it's going to be constantly afflicting those move cards. But when there's a bunch of move cards that release, that means that there's ways to counter those move cards, right? You're seeing we just talked about Human Torch. Kraven's going to be ramping up. You might as well start punishing your opponent. And I want you to re-look at Scream more so as a tech to steal against rather than I have to build around this card. One of the biggest downfalls of Scream is that it often gets looked at exclusively in its deck. But if you build a small package and implement it into another archetype, I do think that Scream got a huge buff, at least for the next several weeks, because of Viv Vision. Remember, every weekend there's going to be missions, and anybody who has a season pass is trying to use Viv Vision to get wins, so you're going to see an increase in that play. Tech in Scream for that reason. I think you're going to be very happy about that. But similarly to what Viv Vision and Sparky and all of these move archetypes are doing, I need to remind you that card number 2, Shadow King exists. Okay, it seems like a no-brainer, but a lot of people think I have big card, therefore I must destroy big card. I have to play Shang-Chi. There are metas for Shang-Chi. Absolute Power does that. Like when the Scar meta was around, that one, my God. Yeah, Shang-Chi was your best friend because it could help you win back one of those lanes. This is not that meta. This is not the meta because we're seeing move elements, we're seeing affliction, we're seeing importance in catching up on the final turn. And if the Juggernaut nerf going to 4/5 taught us anything, 2-cost cards need to be important on turn 2, but they also need to be important on turn 6. Shadow King exclusively is a way to have another stacking piece that you can play on turn 6. So am I going to recommend this in a Wiccan style deck? Absolutely not. But the resetting of a 14 power vulture going all the way down, that's incredibly strong. And I just had it happen to me in a game, I want to say 2 or 3 games ago, where there was this amazing Sparky, Aranya, Zorn combination that allowed on the drop of a Human Torch, after all the movements were done, it was a 38 powered torch. You know how comfortable it is to go Shadow King. You don't have to have Shang-Chi all the time. This is not the meta for Shang-Chi. Highly recommend investing into Shadow King. Now, simultaneously, I want to give you one other element to that. If you are using those elements and you want to protect yourself, especially with more and more players starting to recognize that Omega Sentinel is an incredibly good card. Let me be clear on that. If you don't believe me, go look at the good or garbage video that we just released about that, okay? Omega Sentinel is a great card. You're going to want to be ready to not only protect cards that you move, but also be ready to undo some of the damage on the popular cards as they release. So Luke Cage gets a small buff in relevance, at least this week, potentially the entire duration of the season. Affliction's been around there for a while, and Luke Cage has metas and moments where he comes and goes and comes and goes. This is one of those moments where you're looking to support the green power that you're putting onto your cards with cards like Viv Vision, for example, or Sparky, moving them around. Then maybe you just undo that Omega Sentinel and then turn it into a 4/3 brick for your opponent. That's kind of the direction with Luke Cage, because this is a meta for Luke Cage. Now, card number 4, I don't know what else we have to do as a community to remind you that Mobius M. Mobius is an incredibly strong card that has incredible relevance right now. Let me explain why. The beginning of the season, people play their comfort decks. You see the comfort decks of Destroy, Mr. Negative, Discard. Those are the 3 big ones that everyone, while the meta is currently being defined of, is it a move meta? Is it a good cards meta? Is it a discard meta? Is it a, what exactly is it? You need to be ready to handle the most common decks that appear on ladder. And it's those: Destroy, Discard, and Mr. Negative. Mobius and Mobius undoes all of them. The swarms going back up to 2/3 ruins the strategy for Bullseye. Getting rid of the death from being a 0/12 back to an 8/12 ruins a 12 power free card. And Mr. Negative, I think that's kind of, self-explanatory, but I don't think you remember this card because I don't see it enough. And Surge is still incredibly popular, and there's a lot of cost reduction mechanics still floating around in that first week because everyone's trying to climb to infinite as fast as possible. You should be climbing faster than them. Mobius is going to be that kind of card that allows that to happen. The 5th card I'm going to mention, you might look at me with, kind of a little bit of a confused look, but hear me out. Gorgon. I think Gorgon got a huge buff based on the meta. The biggest reason is because it has been widely discussed amongst the Marvel Snap community that one of the best decks in the game right now is anything that's running Hood and Misery, and getting that effect to happen in multiplicity. Allowing a Hood's demon, if you will, to be a 2/6 versus a 1/6 is a massive difference. Yet alone, there are many other ways to mess with it that you can undo that entire Victoria Hand style deck. I think Gorgon is a card that also comes and goes out of different metas. For example, we saw it, making a lot more presence when Thanos was starting to run around a little bit too prevalently. This is a release valve. We talk about Shang-Chi being a release valve for certain cards. Gorgon is very much filling that role right now too. Do not sleep on that idea because we have Moira. Moira X just came out. So why not punish them for getting cards back into their hand because they got copies of them? Well, congratulations. Now you're bricked. I think Gorgon's a very strong card right now, but on that same token, considering that that was 5 cards, I'm going to give you a bonus card, not for the memes, but only for the success of what happened previously. I'm just going to remind you this card exists, and don't be surprised when people start playing it more because of a Victoria Hand meta. Fair? Don't laugh, Brood. That's it. Right now, I know the meta is currently getting, figured out. It's the beginning of the season. We're all trying to figure out exactly what it is. But if you've got Luke Cage controlling Affliction, you've got Scream controlling Move, Shadow King undoing all of the benefits that happen from these new powerful cards that release in the game, whether it be positive or negative, and then you've got created cards being controlled via Gorgon or Cobra, I'm telling you, and then Mobius is just Mobius. I think you need to remember that you're going to farm cubes if you play into the meta, knowing what the meta truly is. In the first week of the season, though, it's pretty regularly the same thing every season. So don't be afraid to refer back to this video in the first week of every season moving forward, because I'm pretty sure most of those cards will be relevant all month and then some in the next season. But we'll do another video every month on this one. So I appreciate you all, but hang on just a second though, because the video that releases after this, we're going to be talking about deck building and what a lot of creators are not telling you.